say that. This is sort of...
It's Monday, I'm Scotty, that's Motty. In the corner is the voice of reason, producer Alexei. Hope you've all had a mint weekend aside from the football. And before I get into it with my good friend here, Jay Motty, I'd just like to say it's come under for a lot of stick recently, and people have been saying we should get rid of it and it's not working, it's ruining the game, it's terrible. And I've just got to be honest now, and you know me, I'm always like straight shooter. That goal was clearly offside for Liverpool.
The Diaz one?
Yeah.
6 yards offside.
Ridiculous. And they're still milking it 2 days afterwards.
That's why you didn't need VAR. Yeah. You don't need VAR. You didn't even need linesmen to tell you.
No.
It's clearly offside.
Yeah.
What are you moaning about? Why are you threatening to invade Pugmore or whatever it was they were doing with that rather bizarre statement? It is hilarious. I hate VAR, but it's kind of funny what's going on there.
Yeah. Why all the drama now about it? Because Liverpool, it's not like any other club hasn't had any VAR injustice. Why is it?
This means more, Scott. Yeah. This means more. The hashtag itself. Yeah. This means more.
This is more enjoyable.
When we lose a decision or goal because of VAR, and they lose one, it means more to them. It's more important. Right. It's more seminal. It's more devastating. All of the above. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we've spoken about this loads of times, and none of us are big fans of VAR. For me, it just ruins the enjoyment of the game, ruins that sort of spontaneity when it comes to celebrating. The implementation of it is terrible, waiting for 5 minutes for decisions and stuff like that. It's just, whatever reason you want to look at it, I just don't see any positives. But this whole thing of like the Scouts are saying like we're going to, I don't know, just do something about it. It's a bit like, all right, pipe down. What are you going to do about it? Sulk.
Whinge.
Yeah. I mean, they've asked for the audio, which, all right, here's why the decision was wrong. Here's the audio of us getting the decision wrong. Doesn't make it any easier, does it?
What clarity do they want? You know, they've held their hands up. They want the game replayed, don't they?
They did, like, do you know what? Me and Joe were talking about this on the Paddock podcast, and he didn't suggest that. He said, like, do you think we'll ever get to a scenario where points could be awarded post-game or whatever? And I said, no, I just don't. I think that just ruins everything. Yeah. But yeah, like even that, like a game getting replayed doesn't work, does it? Because you can't get the crowd to go back to the game, and you can't get, like, certain players might have been unavailable for that, and now they're available for this one, or vice versa.
They could get all the fans. Remember what you were wearing that day?
Yeah.
We're going to recreate the 86th minute exactly and play the last 5 minutes.
Make sure you're in the same
What do you mean she's in hospital? No, we're going to get her out.
It's got to be identical scenario. Oh, hang on, it's raining. It's raining today. We'll have to wait till it's sunny. Like, it's a nonsense, isn't it? And to be fair, and I don't have to say this, to be fair, the Scouts is like, VAR has been terrible, and that was shocking because I remember looking at it thinking, he looks onside to me. Am I missing something? And the fact they wouldn't even put the lines on, because it's like, if we put the lines on, it's going to show he's clearly onside.
Yeah.
Spoke volumes. So yeah, it has been a complete shambles from top to bottom since it came in. I think you've had one or two sort of decisions where you go, oh, that was great, yeah, VAR did a good job, and it is a little bit like that of, you know, like when you have a good experience, you tell one person. When you have a bad experience, you tell 10 people. Like, more people tend to remember the ones they got wrong more than the ones they got right, even though they've got far more right than they've got wrong. It's just the ones they've got wrong are almost inexcusable.
But tell me the difference then between pre-VAR, because you used to have referees. Nobody talked about the good referee. It's exactly the same thing. It's human error, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I think the only difference is with the human error, you can accept it.
No, but that was human error.
Yeah, but I can accept a referee, say 30 yards away, split-second decision, getting it wrong.
Yeah.
When I say accept it, you might moan. Like, I still moan about Paul Scholes' goal against Porto. That was 19 years ago.
Chelsea against United.
The Nani red card. There's decisions that live with you, and you still moan about them. But the fact is, that is a mistake. That's a human making a split-second judgment and getting it wrong. What we've got here now is someone watching a replay over and over and over and over again and still getting it wrong. That's what the issue is. It's the fact that you've got this technology, you're watching something and you can go, okay, look, let's pause that there, let's have a look. Is he onside, is he offside? Clearly onside. no drama. But they've watched that replay, supposedly, looked at it, paused it, and then gone, he's off. That doesn't make any sense, because anyone that looks at that can see he's not. Also, some of the decisions we're seeing in terms of fouls and stuff, there's no consistency. Like, where is the consistency? The handballs, again, the Romero one, we spoke about this a little while ago. Romero one against United, clear handball, not given. Romero, the same player, against Arsenal, from a closer range, given as a handball and a penalty. That is the frustrating thing, is the fact that you've got lack of consistency. You've also got the fact that these referees are looking at it over and over again from all these angles and still getting it wrong. And these apologies, if anything, make matters worse, because it's like, we got it wrong, we're sorry. And then a week later, we got that one wrong, we're sorry as well. You think, you're not learning from your mistakes. No, and the worst thing is that VAR was brought in on the promise that it was going to fix all the problems, which leads me now on to Ten Hag. That was nicely done. How are you, Alexei? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just, bobbing along after another United loss. It's just getting a bit sad.
You got pissed on again at the weekend, didn't you?
I did.
Hey, was that after you got home from the game?
Yeah, it's just what me and my mates like to do to pass time in the evening. It's a bit of urinal.
Listen, if you got a shower, you got a shower.
Yeah, it was at half time, 1-0 down. We were, my mate was queuing to get us a pint and that, and I was like, I'll go in for a wee.
I'm going in to get peed on.
And
I was going to go clean my shoes with piss.
Yeah, I just thought, I'll go for a wee. What's the worst that can happen here? Went in the urinal, stood next to a quite big man, and I knew what I was getting myself into. I could feel the golden shower coming before it happened.
So wrong.
And I started, and it did splash all over me. And I didn't have shorts on this time, so at least it wasn't piss on my skin. But it was still piss on my trackies, which have now obviously had to have a very thorough wash. And I did spend the whole of the second half depressed because we were losing and covered in piss again.
Somebody else's piss.
Other than that, though, yeah, if it was my own piss, I'd love it, obviously, But because it's someone else's, we were losing.
Where do you want to go from here? Away from his trousers, obviously.
I was going to say the other way is down, but I think the other way is up after that.
Because I imagine you've had your fill of talking about the game and where we're up to.
It was interesting because I obviously it's not good enough, and losing at home to Palace after losing to Brighton, and the results we've had this season, I think, is it 4 losses, is it, or 5? I forget. That's how bad it is. 4, sorry. So there's 3 in the league, and then obviously the Bayern Munich game as well. Some of them you can kind of go, all right, the Emirates could have gone either way. Losing at Arsenal's not the end of the world. Losing at the Allianz Arena, although the performance wasn't great, kind of expected it. And then others you go, Brighton at home, no excuses. Spurs away, the game was there to be won. And the game against Palace was really frustrating. And I just think Joe was being quite philosophical and panicking. He was saying, look, possession and shots and all the rest of it, actually the numbers aren't bad. But I just feel like there's no true belief in the team at times, and I think that the one real worry for me, if they've got one takeaway, and it's not even a takeaway because I've been thinking this for a long time, it was the Leeds game last season where I really noticed it, and then we've seen it in extremes, certainly at Anfield away being the Liverpool away at Anfield obviously being the most obvious one, is how this team comes out for the second half worse than the first half.
Yeah,
like United, even under Fergie, we could have stinkers in the first half. And he'd rally the troops at half time, he'd throw a few cups of tea at people, he'd smash a few doors, he'd boot at David Beckham or whatever, and they'd come out in the second half and we'd run riot. We go in the first half at half time after a lacklustre first half performance, and somehow we come out even worse in the second half.
That's such a good point. That I've missed that, but you expect it. Like, we've done watch-alongs here, and I think it's got the second half's got to be better.
Yeah, you've done watch-alongs,
and you think that with the reputation of being a disciplinarian, that when they walk back into the changing rooms, and we don't know what sort of bloke he's like behind closed doors, but if you look at the mugshot behind us, he doesn't look like quite an intimidating bloke, despite when he's riding his unicycle around Altrincham. But he does like you think he'd be quite intimidating, but he'd just come out and it's exactly the same sort of can't be arsed, laissez-faire sort of, no immediacy in it at all.
It's really,
well, that's on him though, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Because if you look at some of the games. And I've just picked a random one here from last season. Newcastle away. We lost 2-0. Both goals came in the second half, and it wasn't like we were setting the world alight in the first half. I'm going to do it. Forgive me. Anfield. I actually agreed with Gary Neville. I thought in the first half at Anfield we were a better team. People might laugh at that. I don't care. We had better chances than they did. We just didn't take them. And then the second half, we conceded 6 goals. I mean, it was awful. The Leeds game that I referenced, the reason I referenced that game is because they got an early goal I think it was early in the first half. Sorry, just finding it now. They got a goal after 1 minute, right? Second half, so we go in at half time, 1-0 down. What do you expect in the second half at Old Trafford? You come out, you get at them, you get a goal back, their asses drop, and we get a winner. What happened in the first 3 minutes of the second half? Leeds scored.
Yeah.
We came out and were like second best again at home to Leeds. And Leeds are the perfect team to play because the rivals, who we all hate, it's a big scalp for us as fans, and they're atrocious. They got relegated for a reason. And yet, we had to get going twice. You can't ignore the fact that we keep doing this. And we did it against Crystal Palace. It's like the second half we came out, nothing changed really, did it? There wasn't a point where you went, oh, well, we've sorted that out or we've got our act together. It's a growing trait that the second half isn't good enough. And in answer to your question, I wonder whether he's overthinking it with some of these players and the instructions he's giving them at half time. Like most managers will tell you, when I've read interviews with managers or read books about managers, that at half time you've only got so many instructions you can give to players.
Right.
You can't bombard them with 100 things because they ain't going to soak it all in. There's not enough time. There's too much. So you can literally say to, the winger, get chalk on your boots, get down that line and whip that cross in. When you get that ball, run it.
It's more motivational speech as much as it is strategy.
Motivational and some simple things.
Yeah.
Like
do this better.
Yeah, do it better. Defense get closer to the midfield or whatever. Or do you know what I mean? Like you play a bit deeper. Just little instructions that they can get. I wonder whether he's over-egging it and giving them too much and they're like, oh, I can't remember any of that. Or, I don't even know what he's on about. Or he's just getting ignored. Because there was an element of that one there under Louis van Gaal, I think. I think it was an interview with Morgan Schneiderlin I read last season where he said that the guy was just bombarding everyone with too much information, and he said the best players under Van Gaal were often Rashford and Martial, because Rashford had just come into the team as a kid and weren't listening to him, just doing his own thing, and Andy Martial didn't understand him, so he just did his own thing. And they were banging in goals every week because he was just free and just loving this. Where he said the rest of the team was like, what's he told me to do? Where have I got to be? Sometimes I just feel like it's a bit too much. I don't know. I'm not in the dressing room at half time, so I might be wrong. It just seems that something is going amiss at half time because 9 times out of 10, United are coming out for the second half worse than the first half, and the first half's been bad enough.
Well, that's what we're going to say. The second half is bad, but the first half, so we're not having them problems with the instructions from the off, though, because at the moment it looks such a disjointed team. And I understand it's a disjointed team down to injuries or players just coming back. We've had such a makeshift back four. For me, though, one of the concerns is, I don't know if this is a bad word to use, is how naive he is sometimes in terms of how he's setting up against teams. If you look at how Crystal Palace play with a low block, and how hard it's going to be to break them down, and we just know what Crystal Palace are going to play like. When they put their better team out on Saturday.
Yeah.
And we just can't seem to break them teams down that play like that. When it's a little bit more open football, then we seem a little bit better. But at the moment, it's a team full of individuals for me.
No, I agree with that. I was calling out some of them individuals this morning outside Old Trafford and saying they need to step up on the day they're supposedly world class. And we've seen it in moments, but the moments are too far, a few and far between. Another issue, and I don't want to use this to bash Erik ten Hag, but he has to take responsibility. And I will get to some of your comments in a minute, but do hit that like button. You might not like what's going on at United, but you can like the video, smash a like, and we'll get in some of your comments in a minute. The substitutions, for me, are borderline baffling, if not worse. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like the other day, he made 5 substitutions. Some of them you get. Garnacho, 100% get that. He's going to run at the Palace defenders. He's going to cause problems. I understand it. Even Anthony Martial, we saw him a couple of decent cameos. Okay, I get it. He's an attacker. He can score goals. He has scored goals. Let's not pretend he doesn't. So I understand it. But then it's like Maguire, Eriksen, Donny van de Beek.
Yeah.
Well, what's that? What are you doing here? Like, I don't get that. And I know Erik ten Hag knows far more about football than I will. But just from a fan's point of view, you're looking at it going, all right, you've changed half the team. And some of these players you brought on are like the forgotten men of football.
Like, yeah, that's like, but where have you got them from? The elephant graveyard.
Yeah,
like,
Like, where's you? Like, do you honestly think that kid's going to win you this game or get us? Because I don't, and I've got no evidence to support the idea that he will.
But what's the evidence to support that Ten Hag's the right man? Because I'm not asking for Ten Hag to be sacked by any stretch of the imagination before I get all hit on pelters on Twitter. But to get boos as well at the end of the Palace game was quite damning. It's the worst start Manchester United have had officially now, isn't it, for 34 years.
Yeah.
It's not looking good. I think I said on the last live that we did, we've got these run of games coming up that on paper we should be beating, the likes of, Palace. And I said if he doesn't win all of them and we go to City and we get bashed, I don't think he lasts past March. Because I don't think if we're not in Champions League football and we're out of the Champions League spots by March, I think he'd be gone, and he'd be lucky if he gets that long.
Yeah, I think Christmas is a crunch time. I could see Christmas, and I don't want him to.
No, not at all.
And I just feel that historically that seems to be a time that I think Ole, Jose, didn't they both miss, like, gone by Christmas?
Yeah, remember when we got Ralph Ragnick for Christmas?
They'd gone. So it wouldn't surprise me. I know Moyes was like a bit further down the line.
But they were still in the Champions League at that point, wasn't
and then, Moyes wasn't until the Everton game away where he was mathematically impossible, and then the club went, right, this isn't working. And obviously it was a different situation there. He inherited the reigning Premier League champions, for Pete's sake. In answer to your question, what do I think, and I said Ralph Ragnick then, Erik ten Hag has done, what's he shown me to make me believe he's the right man for the job. I was excited when we got him. I thought his record was good. I thought he's an up-and-coming manager in the sense that he'd had successful seasons at Ajax. And people go, oh, everyone wins the league at Ajax. No, they don't. They haven't won it for 4 years when he got there. Do you know what I mean? PSV win the title, final challenge for the title. But he had that consistency and a good run in the Champions League, which they haven't done before or since for a long time. Plus, his first season, yes, he only won the games he was meant to win, but he did that. Ragnick didn't, Ole didn't, Jose didn't, towards the end anyway. And Erik ten Hag did, and we won a trophy and got top 3. I'm not going to dispute that was, better than I kind of expected us to do. So I just feel like with Erik ten Hag, he's got just about, and I say just about, enough credit with me as a fan to stick with him. I don't feel like this guy is the wrong guy for the job. I think he's the right guy for the job. And I personally, me and you've spoken about this many a time, unless the wheels came off where we're like 15th or whatever, I would give him to the end of the season. I would. And I always think of 2 examples I use. One is Fergie, where Fergie had that short-term sort of bump where we finished second in his first full season. Then it tailed off because he was doing some long-term things that were just taking a little while. And also Arteta. Arteta's another one. He got that trophy in the first 4 months of being in the job. Then they finished 8th and 8th. But he was doing things where he's going like, look, all right, Aubameyang's
there needs to be enough conviction behind the scenes for the board.
Let's not forget, Arteta's record at one point was...
Well, they wanted him out.
Awful.
They really wanted him out. And then you look at the sort of problems that he's got off the pitch that he's had to deal with. Some I think he's dealt with well, some that I think he could have dealt with better. The stuff with the ownership, the amount of injuries that he's got at the moment. So there's that you've got to go, right, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt with that. Because if you look at the sort of Moyes disaster or Solskjaer or Mourinho in the latter days, he had fit teams. Do you know what I mean? He couldn't really go, right, well, that's the excuse for that. So at the moment, he's got a little bit of grace period for me. But I just think the games are coming thick and fast. It might be a good time that the international periods come along, to try and get some of these players back towards fitness. But, the further that it gets away, the chances of getting top 4. If we lose any more games in October, we're 7 points off it now.
I stopped looking at the table after the Spurs game.
But this is not right.
That's enough for that for me.
I had a conversation at the weekend and someone was making the comparison between Big Ange Spurs and what Ten Hag's doing at Manchester United. Now, I'm not too sure what Spurs' transfer were like this summer, but I know that they lost their greatest player of all time, arguably, in Harry Kane, biggest goal scorer. He's come in and they're playing football that I'm not too sure Manchester United matched in the sort of 14 months that Ten Hag's been in charge.
I get your point. I've heard this point about.
I don't know. You get New Balances and all that.
Postecoglou. Yep. It's been made quite a lot, that argument. And De Zerbi as well, to a lesser degree. People saying, well, look at what De Zerbi did when he took over from Potter. He came in and
Potter took over, but that was a better Brighton team than he took over. Where did that Spurs team finish last season?
Spurs finished 6th, I think. Did they finish last season? Or was it 8th? In fact, I'll tell you exactly where they finished. Bear with me one sec. They finished 8th.
Yeah.
So he's inherited this team. Now, there's certain things that have kind of gone his way a little bit in terms of, I think, Heung-min Son's gone back to his best. He's made some good signings. James Maddison, obviously, has been a very good signing for him, and he's been absolutely flying, basically. If you look at him, he's been one of the best midfielders
in the
league, and they've done well there. Also, I think one or two other players like Yves Bissouma, who Conte just didn't fancy, has stepped up this season. You give the manager credit because he's shown faith in him and he's getting a tune out of him, but he's been man of the match, I think, in 3 out of the first 7 games, whatever it was. So they've had certain things you go, okay, certain players have started to come good. Also, I think the keeper, is it Vicario? I think Lloris was a disaster. I'm sorry, I just do. I know he was a World Cup winner and another World Cup finalist, but did you watch him towards the end at Spurs?
Was it De Gea?
I'm not defending De Gea.
No, what I mean is at
least with De Gea, he had a defender good enough in front of him to give him 6 clean sheets. He won the Golden Glove. I think De Gea had his issues, but defensively as a 5, the 4 in front of him and him, a lot of the time we were all right because we got more clean sheets than anyone. Lloris was just awful. And they've brought in a keeper who's done well. So he's had certain things that have gone his way. And obviously, like Liverpool losing 2 players, getting their 9 men, things like that help you.
Of course,
do you know what I mean? Whereas other decisions you go, United haven't had. But there's no denying that Postecoglou's come in and done a great job. I'm always a little bit wary.
Because it'll fall off at some point.
Yeah, because it's easy to go, look at what he's done. I heard the same argument with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after 4 games.
I get this is an interesting point though. When Solskjaer was the caretaker manager and you saw an immediate reaction because he was no longer Jose Mourinho.
Yeah,
you saw that.
100%.
Ralph Rangnick,
100%.
for the first 45 minutes that Ralph Rangnick was in charge, we were gegenpressing our asses off. I've never seen gegenpresses like that before. And after that, they were like, they were knackered.
Yeah, I sat here, Scotty, with Stephen Alston sat where you were, or it might have been the other way around. And he made me feel like an idiot for not knowing who Ralph Rangnick was, what gegenpress was, and how good we were going to be under Ralph Rangnick, right? And for about, you've been kind, I give him 40 minutes against Palace, right? I thought, Alston's right, and I don't often say this is amazing. And then the players, because they're all lazy, just thought, I can't bother with this anymore, I'm knackered. Stops, and then that was the end of the gegenpress.
But for a time being, no matter how short it was.
Yeah, for them 40 minutes.
Yeah.
They were the best 40 minutes we've seen at Old Trafford for a few years.
There was a reaction to it, do you know what I mean? Even under Mourinho, it might not have been everyone's cup of tea in terms of the football, but there was a sort of style of play, marked it down. We were difficult to beat if we weren't playing all that sort of the sexy football that a lot of Manchester United fans want. I haven't seen that reaction at all under Ten Hag. I just haven't seen a game where we've gone out completely for 90 minutes, and I always expect us to drop points or concede a goal. I'm never confident that we're going to finish a game for 3 points.
Do you know how bad it is? I get your point. It's that bad, I can name the games that's happened.
That's how bad it is.
Do you know what it's like? I used to have this argument about certain people with Paul Pogba. I don't make it about Pogba all the time, but when people say, oh, Paul Pogba, he's never stepped up. Like, he's never given you a world-class performance, and I'd name him.
Yeah.
And I think actually I can name all of his world-class performances. That might be part of the problem where he hasn't done it enough. He's done it that few times I can literally name every single time I think he's took the game by the scruff of the neck. If you ask me to do the same with Roy Keane or Brian Robson or Paul Scholes or Rooney, I ain't doing that because there's dozens, if not hundreds.
Yeah, tell me what good games for Sir Alex Ferguson managed.
Exactly. There's
there's
countless. Whereas with Ten Hag,
there's undoubtedly more bad than good. There really, really is, and that's what I mean. It'll be his undoing if he can't turn it around soon or players come back.
I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day, and they cited his lack of charisma. And I will get into the comments in a minute. Hit that like button. I'm going to go through your comments.
Subscribe as well, man.
Hit that subscribe. In fact, let me do the comments first, and I'll get back to my point. Nicholas Walker, Super Chat, says, the main issue I have is, he's talking about you, Scotty, what you said. I can't see a style of play, Barcelona style of play. Ange has managed it in 3 to 4 months at Spurs. Are we possession-based, high-pressed, counter-attack?
Deep-pressed.
Nice. Bill O'Reilly says, 2 things. 1, don't underestimate the effects of the ownership uncertainty. Imagine how damaging that must be. 2, the right wing anti-issues, plus Erik ten Hag was expecting Greenwood to be available, so he's citing those sort of reasons as well. King Dino says the club is rotten to the core and managers become the scapegoat every time the players feel a bit tired or lazy. Altered Shape says injuries, transfers, suspension. What is Ten Hag supposed to do? Blue Collar Ask Guardian says Ollie's style is the best we've had since Fergie left. Holly Jenkins says, is the pressure too big to play for United? The constant scrutiny must take its toll. But some of these players have played at Real Madrid. Some of these players have been
World Cup finalists.
Won the Champions League. They've. I mean, not just talking about Varane and Casemiro. Mount's done it. Like you say, World Cups. We've had players that have done well for their countries. A lot of these players have come from big clubs anyway. I know you could argue that they come from clubs that aren't as big as Manchester United, other than Real Madrid. But they've been on a big stage and they've done it for United in times as well. It's not like you can say, I've never seen that player have a good game for United. We have. Just the consistency. It isn't there, is it?
No.
That's the big issue.
I hate this excuse of the players are chucking the manager under the bus. Because if anyone's ever managed a team, first and foremost, you don't want your team to be able to do. It's your responsibility that they don't throw you under the bus. Why don't the players at Liverpool throw Klopp under the bus?
There's one for you then.
Or Pep.
Do you think then, because
it's their job to motivate the players, that's the way I see it.
Do you think there is a bit of this that goes on? I'm not just trying to make excuse to Ten Hag, because I've said my piece on him and I think he's good enough manager, but I don't know if he'll get the time he needs if he doesn't turn around quickly. But there is a little bit of boom and bust that goes on with every single team, bar City. Every single team in the Premier League has boom or bust going on. I'll explain myself there, because you're probably thinking, what are you talking about, Jay? Arsenal finished 8th, then they finished 2nd, yeah? So they had 2 terrible seasons. Yeah. Finishing 8th in the Premier League is awful. Let's have it right. If we finish 8th, we'll be raging. We've never finished below 7th in the Premier League. And I've watched some garbage post to Alex Ferguson. So let's have a bit of perspective. Liverpool, under Klopp, finished 6th last season. The season before, when they had that late rally to get into the top 4, they lost 6 games at home on the spin.
Yeah.
There seems to be this thing where 6 clubs, Chelsea won the Champions League, then finished 10th or whatever, or 12th. There seems to, every single club, Spurs did it, finished 4th or 3rd or whatever, then 8th. Every single club seems to go boom, bust season, except City. Do you think it is a thing in the Premier League that seems to be prevalent?
Maybe so, I don't know.
And if there is, why is that?
Because it might be a mentality thing.
Yeah. Because you don't see the consistency, do you?
No, because it's like a glass ceiling, isn't it? I suppose if you get 2nd, because City are dominant for whatever reason you want to put there.
115 charges hanging over him.
That'll be the one, thank you very much. You go all right, well, 2nd is the new 1st. Do you know what I mean? And because you've got all board owners who go right, for us to get to 1st, to be able to compete with Man City properly, we're going to have to spend a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're the owner of a club and one eye is on your pocket, or both eyes, or 1.5 eyes are on your pocket, or if you're the Glazers, both eyes are on your pocket.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to spend the money to do that extra mile to get to the top. So for them, they're like, well, we don't really need to. We've got Champions League. That's enough to keep the sponsors happy.
Yeah.
That means there's enough money going in my pocket. Okay, we might drop out next year, because that's what the consistency is. That's United. We're consistently inconsistent. Champions League spots, out of it, sack manager. Champions League spots, out of it, sack manager. And it just yo-yos up and down. But all the while, the money is generated for the owners. So they're not massively bothered, because they're just putting in just enough to get by. That's what it is. I don't think the want's there to get to the top. And I think if you're a player, that must become massively frustrating. You heard the Rooney comments when they were bringing players in, and he wasn't happy with them. When he talked to Ferguson, or was it Moyes? And he was saying, who are we signing this summer? And what morning was the question in the Glazer signings.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Who are you bringing in around us? Yeah. And as much as I love Casemiro, the man is 30 years old.
31.
31, right?
I think
he's 31 in March or something.
Oh, is it? Sorry. Is this going to be one of those Arsenal things? He's 30, do you not understand fractions? You're 31.
Yeah, till he's 32. And then Eriksen, another one, great player on a shoestring. But we've been crying out to replace McTominay and Fred for a long time.
Yeah.
We've just done what we've been doing with our centre forward positions, but moved it to midfielders. Just buying players that are great or were at their heyday, but we don't have to spend
and also giving him big contracts.
Yeah, giving big contracts.
I think Casemiro's on a 4-year deal. Eriksen's on a 3-year deal. Like,
why are you signing a player with the greatest respect to Christian Eriksen on a free transfer and giving him a 3-year deal?
And also, with the greatest of respect to Christian Eriksen, a player who died not that long ago. He literally died on a football pitch, came back, and he had 4 good months, maybe 5 or 6 good months at Brentford. And when we got Eriksen, I was pleased. But you're giving him a 3-year deal. That makes little or no sense. You know, I've seen players at United back in the day. Fergie had a blanket policy. If you reach 30, you get a 1-year deal. Giggs signed 10 1-year deals on the spin. Like, he didn't get a long-term deal.
And that's a great point. And what does that do for Ryan Giggs? As much as he's a brilliant player, but if he wants to stay at United, year on year, you've got to give your all to earn that contract. Manchester United have been handing them out like Jehovah's Witnesses on Market Street.
Yeah.
Like, do you want a deal? Yeah, you carry on. So there's no sort of motivation there for the players to improve or to keep the high bar. Because regardless, like Sancho, man's getting paid. He don't have to play for Manchester United again. He can turn up and do a half-assed training session when it's international break. He just pisses off to New York. That's the extreme of the example. But even when it's out on the pitch, we're talking about the second half syndrome. You know, they come out like, oh, we might have lost the game now, but I'm probably going to do something this evening. What are you up to, lads? Do you know, and the mind's not off it because they have no sort of, it's the carrot and the stick. And we've given them all the fucking carrots before they've done anything.
No, it's a good point. And just going back to your original point as well about, is it almost like you feel like you're playing for second? It's depressing. And maybe this season could be different. But if you look at it, like 2 seasons ago, when City won the league, they won it by a point over Liverpool. And you had Liverpool, Chelsea and Spurs finishing 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And this is quite rare for this to happen. The next season, City win the title. And the rest of the top 4's completely changed. And all those teams just mentioned dropped out of the top 4. Yeah. Obviously City. You got Arsenal, United and Newcastle. This season, if you go into it this season, I mean, it's only very, very early, so we can't look too much into it. But the current top 4 is Spurs, Arsenal and Liverpool. So City City as well. So again, Spurs and Liverpool back in the mix now for the time being. I mean, obviously it's so early, it could change. But Newcastle and United, who were in there, are in 8th and 10th respectively.
Yeah.
So it does feel like there's been a bit of a drop off, and you know, maybe that is endemic of a lot of clubs. But in terms of Manchester United, I think the contract one thing that you brought up is a really important point, because Jadon Sancho, for example, he's on, I think, more money than almost any player in the Premier League. I think he's one of the top earners in the Premier League. Now, when we signed him, you could justify paying big money and giving him the deal because you go, look, he's got a goal a game, almost goal involvement every game. He's 21. We've been after him for a few years. He's got this, that and the other. But you've got to do your due diligence. And now what we're hearing is all these stories are coming out from his time at Dortmund, from even his time at Manchester City, where he played his time at England, and people going, do you know what, he had issues turning up for training, he had issues when he went away, he wouldn't be back in time, he had issues looking after himself, he had issues not getting enough sleep, he had issues where we put him with Erling Haaland as roommates because Erling Haaland's professionalism rubbed off on him.
Yeah.
That's got to be a red flag when you're about to give someone the biggest deal in football.
And they're bringing him back to a country where all their mates are, so the social life's going to be there. So he's going to have more distractions and stuff. But the thing is with that, right? Jadon Sancho is Jadon Sancho, right? So I understand that the manager have some sort of, or the club have due diligence to sort of, you know, check up on him. But he's going to be and do what he wants to do. So he can't, I'm going to get the money. Football isn't the most important thing for me, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, United just like saying, we're going to give you all that money without you proving yourself. And the reason why is because we've been so bad in the league at signing players. We're playing so much catch up. Is the desperation to get that deal over the line. We're not asked about any reputation. We want to make this deal because we need this player for several reasons, and it's not just because of the stuff on the pitch. Jadon Sancho's marketing campaign when he signed for the club with all the new shirts and stuff like that, you're not seeing anything like it of any other recent players.
No. Can I ask you a question then? How many good signings or impressive signings you think we've made post Fergie? And Alexei, I'll get you on this as well. You have a little think, and then you come in as well. And by all means, you know, whoever wants to go first. How many good signings, or which players do you think have been good signings post Sir Alex Ferguson for United?
Post Sir Alex Ferguson.
And we've spent £1.5 billion, just over £1.5 billion, I think, post Sir Alex. You tell me the good signings we've made. The signings that if you could go back in time, you'd do all over again. You'd buy them again.
I think the best player that we've signed post Ferguson was probably Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and he was 35, striker, and was am I right? He's like 1.2 million.
All right, Zlatan, there's one.
Lisandro Martinez, I'd probably say.
Yeah.
I think Varane's a great player, but I think that he's injured a hell of a lot of the time. So whether you want to put, he's world class, but there's a lot of, he's made of paper.
Yeah, no, I agree. Alexei, any advance on that? We've got Martinez, we've got Varane with a bit of an asterisk. We've got Zlatan.
Fernandes and Shaw probably. I mean, Shaw obviously hasn't been great, but I guess for 30 million quid, you'd say what we've got out of him, he has had really good points to make him worth 30
Shaw's very very indicative of Manchester United, though, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Shaw will have a good season and a terrible season. So what have we got there? 4 players in 1.5 billion.
I think the Bruno one. Yeah, I think if you go back in time, 100% you sign Bruno again.
Yeah.
Zlatan, I agree with you. There's some that are I'm a little bit on the fence with, like Juan Mata, for example. I probably would sign him again. I don't think he's shone for very long, but he had some great moments. Helped us win the FA Cup and all the rest of it. Daley Blind I liked for a while, but didn't cut the mustard long term or whatever. But there's not many stand out where you go, great signing, good signing, great signing. No. And during that time, right, we've signed Angel Di Maria, who just won a Champions League and been one of the best players in the league that season. We signed Paul Pogba, who was the most sought-after midfield in world football. We've signed Romelu Lukaku, who couldn't stop scoring goals whatever club he went to. We've signed Alexis Sanchez, who'd been absolutely amazing at Arsenal and destroyed us at the Emirates. We signed Radamel Falcao, another one of the top strikers in the world. Everyone was just giddy, and myself included, when we got him. We signed Harry Maguire for 80 million, which might be laughable now, but a player that was a mainstay of the England team that just got to semi-finals World Cup, was wanted by Manchester City, and had just been putting in top 10 performances for Leicester City for the last 2 seasons, whatever it was. None of them worked out. Memphis Depay, another one, a great youngster, banging in goals for PSV, scoring free kicks, most exciting winger on the planet, 21 years old. Everyone wants him. Louis van Gaal knows him. He comes here, he does nothing. After the first 2 months, he did well first couple of months. Like, it's almost like every single player, no matter what their MO, whether they're experienced and they're coming towards the end of the career, whether they're up and coming, whether they're established in the Premier League, whether they're world class in terms of what they've achieved in the Champions League or for the club or for the country, no matter what, they've flopped. Like, there doesn't seem to be a consistent sort of reason, you know what I mean? You can say, well, Lukaku's flopped, yet he was a completely different signing than Falcao. Do you know what I mean?
Completely different player. Yeah, no,
Lukaku scored the same amount of goals for us. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The same amount of goals for us in the Premier League that he scored at Everton, but he shouldn't be doing that. He should be scoring more.
Yeah. But then he went to Inter, and it was a great player when he was at Inter. It was a different league and stuff, and ended up winning the Scudetto. You can throw Sancho into that mix in terms of what the potential was.
His numbers
were ridiculous. I was buzzing when he. But again, it's with that due diligence, because if you look at them players that you've mentioned there, Jay, how much are they going just off the ability proven at other clubs compared to their sort of personality, or how does that fit into? Because I always think that's got to be a massive thing. Like, Ferguson was great. If a player was acting out of line amongst that group of players, you were gone because you were a bad egg.
Yeah,
we've just got a lot of bad eggs making a shitty omelette. That's what
you make a good point as well, and I think big part of the issue is that dressing room, the mentality of some players as well. It's not great, is it? And we've been saying this for years, and you think, okay, Varane, Casemiro, they're going to come in and change it all. But they haven't, and they can't. It can't be all on them. Do you know what I mean? You've got players that have been at the club for a long time now. If I'm Luke Shaw or I'm Marcus Rashford, I'm looking around that dressing room when I'm away with England and going, he's won the Champions League, he's won 5 leagues, he's won the Champions League, he's just won a treble, he's won the Champions League. Even players that aren't that great, you know what I mean? Jordan Henderson isn't amazing, but he's won the lot. He's won everything. And I'm thinking, what have I got to show? In the last 5 years, I've won a Carabao Cup. I'd have a bit of sort of anger towards that. I'd have a bit of professional pride of like, hang on a minute, this isn't all right. Like, we've got to sort this out.
Completely. And what happens there is if you're that player that has that sort of moral and drive and motivation and you do want to succeed, that's your sort of prime focus for being a footballer. You want to be the top. You want to get the trophies. When you've got that and you're in a dressing room with someone like Sancho that doesn't want to turn up for work, can't be arsed getting out of bed, and yet earning a shitload more money than you, and being one of the reasons what's stopping you reaching the success of Jordan Henderson, then you go like that. Yeah, why are you not pulling your weight, dickhead? Then you get like a little bit of a sort of you get some argy-bargy there with them, and then you get the other players. The reason I think when we talk about that list there, all them players came for big money, man, right? They came for big money, not because they wanted to play for Manchester United. No. I don't think so.
No, I mean
because they knew they were going to get a shitload of money once they arrived. So when they're there is absolutely no motivation. And I hate to say this and label it all modern footballers, but I don't think that the many modern footballers have that. I want to be Ballon d'Or winners. They do. We certainly don't as Manchester United.
I think whilst I would love to agree completely with you, I think there's not enough at United.
Man United is certainly.
I think I see it. Unfortunately, I see it. You know, you look at City as the example. I know. Listen, there's all sorts going on there, but they have got players there, and these new players that come in, like Akanji, he was all right at Dortmund. He weren't that good, but he comes in. Nathan Ake. I'm sorry, I watched a lot of Bournemouth, and not a lot, but I saw him a few times. I never went, if we don't get Nathan Ake, I will never be able to forgive myself. Like, he was all right, but he comes into that team where there's a mentality, there's a manager who knows what he's doing with him. There's a whole ethos of we are here. We used to have it at United. You saw players at United who won titles. We'd sell them, and they do nothing. Yeah. They go like from United winning titles to just kicking around mid-table in the Premier League, maybe drop down to the Championship. Alexei, before we wrap up, I'll let you have the final word. Yeah?
Yeah.
How do we fix this? You're the expert. Tell us.
Oh, God.
He doesn't want to say it.
Go on.
Well, no, there's no fix, really.
Well, there is. And I want you to tell it us.
So, if you're fixing in the short term, the thing is, like, if you want, right, 4 good months maybe, or 2 months, or even 2 games of a bounce, you would eventually change the manager. However, the thing is, you change the manager and we get in Steve McLaren for a few games and he'll win at home to Luton and we'll go, oh, we're back, he's the man, and he'll get a draw away and we'll go, oh, McLaren's at the wheel, tell me how good does it feel. And we'll bring in someone like Flick for a bit and they'll go, oh, they'll go right. Fall off a bit at the end of the season, get towards the summer, they get their players in. Start next year, right? Oh, we've got top 4. That's good. And then it'll all go. They won't get their top targets the next window, but they'll spend a bit of money and we'll go, right, title charge time. Here we go. It's happening. But the Glazers, they'll still spend a bit of money. They'll still give them a second choice right back, a second choice striker. Then what ends up happening is we come 6th and that manager gets sacked and then we get someone else in. And that has happened for 10 years. So at the moment, Ten Hag is obviously not doing well enough. There's no excuse really to not have a style of play this far in, but you sack him. I mean, that game on Saturday we've seen about 100 times post-Ferguson. That exact thing, a team in the bottom half, I know they overtook us, we're probably in the bottom half, but you know what I mean, comes to Old Trafford, they sit back, we do nothing. And that's happened under Moyes, under Mourinho, under Ole, under Van Gaal. So the change is obviously the Glazers at the top, but you can't. It's not the Glazers' fault that we don't have a style of play and we can't break down Crystal Palace. We have the players to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Bad manager and bad owners aren't mutually exclusive.
No, you can. I said it before in a video we did. Like, I can think that performance isn't good enough from the players and the manager, and also think the owners are terrible owners.
Yeah.
And yes, there's an element of everything trickles down and the owners lead from the top and all the rest of it, but also players have to take responsibility. Danny Noble says it's up to the fans to unite and try to remove the ownership. The culture starts at the top. Maybe time to empty Old Trafford. Problem is, I'd be the only one to do it if it were arranged. I don't know if that works. Like, I've heard this suggestion, but there's always going to be people that will come in them seats. Phil Berry says Angry Jay is the best. Thank you, Phil. Neil Shaw says, short-term fix by hungry Argentinians like Alvarez and Garnacho, etc.
Yeah. I think long-term, us being shit might work out better for us, because then we get rid of this sort of idea of just throwing a load of money at the next up and coming thing, because we were doing it with the manager with Ten Hag, and we've done it with players for the last sort of 10 years. This is going to be solve the problem, and we need to get back to the drawing boards of buying players and bringing them into the ethos to say, you want to play for Manchester United. Well, you want to play for Manchester United first and foremost, not because we're paying you, but because it's a fucking honour play for this club.
Yeah.
That's what they need. And if you don't see it as an honour, then we're putting you on minimum wage for a footballer. You bagging 30 goals, we give you 22 million a season. How much do you want to play for this club?
The sad thing is as well, I thought a few weeks ago we were getting there with these signings, because you looked at Rasmus Højlund, who turned down PSG to come to us. You looked at Sofyan Amrabat, who basically chained himself to a radiator, went on hunger strike, and
that's a man who wants to play.
He couldn't have done any more to get his move to Manchester United, to the point where Fiorentina were like, just go to United, just do one. Jesus wept, just forget it. Honestly, he was like, he did everything he could, and you think, good. These are players that want to come to the club. Rasmus Højlund could have got a bigger pay packet going in, playing in the Farmers League for PSG. Sofyan Amrabat could have gone to a number of clubs that wanted him. And he's 26 years old, he's not a kid. Yeah. It's like a big deal for him. But he didn't, he wanted to come out. You think, okay, that's more like it.
That's all. We need
Mason
all
Mount,
of them.
There was another one who could have stayed at Chelsea. They wanted to keep him. He's been there since he was a kid. They offered him big money to stay, but he came United. You think, right, great. But it's not translating to performance on the pitch. And maybe, going back to the very first thing he said, early doors when we first opened this, maybe when some of these players come back from injury, maybe when we sort out a bit of the shenanigans that have gone on with certain wingers and whatnot, maybe then we will start seeing a bit more consistency in the sort of football that Erik ten Hag is trying to play. But the question is, will he be given enough time to get there? How is he going to be here when all the Luke Shaws, the Martinez's, the Amrabat's able to go into midfield, and the kind of stuff that Andy's able to play week in, week out? We'll have to wait and see. Good vibes, John. I'm going to let him have the final say. John Shin, we love John Shin, says things will improve, I promise. In fact, one last thing I want to say is, me and you did the Scotty and Motty 120 miles challenge.
Yeah, we did, man.
When I say me and you suggested this, emotionally blackmailed me into it.
I've got your t-shirt in the car, actually.
But it's not good in your car, is it? It should be here on my chest now. And he said, let's do this. Let's raise 150 quid. That was our target. Well, thanks to you, lovely people, we've raised 468 plus £105.75 in gift aid. So big thank you to everyone that donated. We appreciate that. Doing that 60 miles in September was a bit of a nose on certain days, I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, I did it 2 miles a day, and there was one day where I didn't do it and you stepped up. But I got to me 60 miles in the end. And there was days where I was like, I can't bother. And I had the man flu as well. And
that's the worst.
Yeah, doing it that. But we got there, and I appreciate all the support and obviously raising money for Cancer Research UK. And I want to say big thank you to John Shin. Everyone who donated, big thank you. But John Shin weighed in with a big donation on Friday, I think it was. So big thank you to him. Going to leave it there. Big thank you as well to Alexei.
Thank you. Woo.
Hey, right, well, I've been Scotty. That's been Motty. That's been the voice of reason. We don't know how long Ten Hag will be here. Hopefully it's a long time, but whether he is or he isn't, us two and maybe producer Alexei, who's just signed a contract as Scotty and Motty's latest producer. So thank you. Have you signed it yet?
You don't need my signature.
No? Right, well, subscribe and like. Tell your friends. See you in a bit.